Ban ga ko mok truyen va nan vat thong not vi tong de, and hung chua hon ton kin logic. Yelenbi de hin ton ro qua chui mok noi joy kak fan, tinin timeline qua Emily, Thursday tuc truong hok, ho so my tong, vik chien gwin luk va 6 tri chung siu keen mot so nip noi by you. Toi de sua kak diem nai, mo rong ton bo tu viet tad va contractions de ai voice dak ro han, dong boys ak nan kong ko ka tieng viet nao lan trong noi dong tieng an. Ben hon chin de dak du chin de, Emily Roy Adrian Kai Mang Tai Sao Nam Truoc, Bien Nam Sao Ko Goi Cho on de Tit Lo Su that en hung by Marcus Nankin, Ko Doc Cho La Chet Trong Tai Nan Jia, Song Lem Tam Tuan Roy Qua Doi Vi Bien Chung Tim Va Chan Thuong Kong Doc Du Tri Dung Luke, Lily O Kung Claire Trong Sutoi John Du. Kak Han Dong Phai Tuk Ti Trong Ban Siu Kung De Doc Thay Bang Kui Trin Hop Ly Han. The dead do not forgive us, but sometimes they send someone back to ask why we failed them. Every Sunday at exactly 7 o'clock in the morning, I drove to St. Michael's Cemetery with 6 white roses resting on the passenger seat beside me. Never 5. Never 7. 6. Emily once told me that 6 was the number of people she imagined around our future dinner table. 2 parents. 4 children. A loud house. Burned pancakes on Saturday mornings. Shoes piled beside the front door. A life so ordinary that I laughed when she described it, because men like me were not built for ordinary things. We were built for locked doors, quiet rooms, and decisions no decent man should ever have to make. At least, that was what I believed before I lost her. The cemetery gates opened at 6:30, but the groundskeeper always left the side entrance unlocked for me. His name was Walter. He was 72 years old and had served in the army. He never asked why 3 black sport utility vehicles waited across the street while I walked inside alone. He never asked why powerful men lowered their voices when they spoke my name. To Walter, I was simply the man who visited the same grave. Every Sunday, even in rain, snow, or the kind of Chicago wind that cut through a wool coat as if it held a personal grudge. That morning was cold for October. 41 degrees Fahrenheit. Gray clouds pressed low over the city, and the grass glittered with frost. My shoes made a soft crushing sound as I followed the narrow path between rows of stone. The roses were wrapped in brown paper. Emily hated plastic. She said flowers needed to breathe, even after they were cut. I remembered everything she had ever said. That was the punishment. Not forgetting. Never forgetting. Her grave stood beneath an old maple tree near the eastern wall. Emily Grace Carter. Beloved daughter. Beloved niece. A light in every life she touched. The dates beneath her name were the cruelest part. 29 years. That was all the world had given her. I stopped 3 feet from the stone and waited for the familiar pressure to settle inside my chest. It always came. Not sharp. Not dramatic. Just heavy. Like someone placing a brick over my heart and leaving it there. "Good morning, Em," I said. My voice sounded too loud in the empty cemetery. A crow shifted somewhere above me. Leaves whispered across the path. I knelt and removed the flowers from their paper one by one. 6 white roses. I trimmed the stems with the small silver knife I carried for that purpose alone, then placed them in the narrow vase fixed beside her headstone. 3 years earlier, men had feared seeing that knife in my hand. Now I used it to arrange flowers for a woman who could no longer see them. That was the kind of joke life enjoyed telling. Lily white. Emily used to call the color. Not white. Lily white. She said plain words made the world smaller. I brushed a fallen leaf from the top of the stone. I kept the bakery open, I told her. The one on Halsted Street. Mrs. Alvarez was behind on her rent again, but I handled it. Silence. You would have said I intimidated the landlord. More silence. You would have been right. I closed my eyes. For a second, I could almost hear her laugh. Soft at first, then impossible to contain. Emily laughed with her entire body. She would lean forward, press one hand against her stomach, and forget that anyone might be watching. I had spent half my life surrounded by people who measured every expression before allowing it to reach their faces. Then Emily walked into my world and laughed as if honesty were free. 6 years earlier, she had disappeared without saying goodbye. For 3 years I told myself that leaving me had been her choice. Then, on a rainy October night, her name appeared on my phone 4 times. 4 calls after 3 years of silence. 4 chances to answer. I watched the phone ring because I was in a meeting, because pride had convinced me that everything could wait until I finished speaking. By the time I called back, there was no answer. By the time I reached the hospital, Marcus had already told me that Emily's car had been found and that she had not survived. I had been shown a ring, a handbag, and paperwork signed by people I trusted. There had been no open casket. No final goodbye. Only a polished wooden box and a grave that swallowed every question I failed to ask. "I should have answered," I whispered. "I should have chosen you." A small sound came from behind the maple tree. Not footsteps. A breath. Quick and frightened. I stood slowly. My security team was 200 yards away beyond the gate, but I did not call for them. I had learned the difference between danger and fear. Whoever was hiding behind that tree was afraid. "You can come out," I said. Nothing moved. "I am not going to hurt you." A red sleeve appeared first. Then a small hand wrapped around the rough bark. A little girl stepped into view. She could not have been older than 6. Maybe 7. She wore a red coat buttoned crookedly over a navy school dress, white tights, and black shoes polished so carefully that they looked new. Dark brown hair fell in loose curls around her shoulders. She held a yellow envelope against her chest with both hands. I forgot how to breathe. Her eyes were gray. Not blue-gray. Not silver. Gray. The exact color I saw every morning when I looked in the mirror. She stared at me with the solemn concentration children use when deciding whether an adult has earned the truth. "Are you Adrian Cole?" she asked. My name sounded strange in her small voice. "Yes." "The real Adrian Cole?" "There is only one that I know of." She considered that answer, then glanced toward Emily's grave. "You come here every Sunday." It was not a question. "How do you know that?" "Aunt Claire told me not to watch you." "But you did." She nodded once. No apology. Emily used to do that. She admitted to breaking a rule without pretending she regretted it. The resemblance struck deeper than her eyes. It was in the tilt of her chin, the stillness of her hands, the way she stood her ground even while fear trembled through her shoulders. "What is your name?" I asked. "Lily." The cemetery seemed to shift around me. The trees. The cold. The sky. Everything moved 1 inch away from where it had been. Lily. Emily's favorite flower. The name she had once said she would give a daughter if she ever had one. I took one careful step closer. The girl did not retreat, but her fingers tightened around the envelope. "Lily what?" "Lily Carter." My pulse became a slow, heavy sound in my ears. I looked toward the grave, then back at her. "Emily Carter was your mother?" Lily nodded. "She told me that you knew each other." "Your mother told you that?" "In a letter." She lifted the yellow envelope. Dark red wax sealed the flap. Pressed into it was the shape of a small bird with open wings. Emily's seal. Years earlier, I had ordered 2 brass sealing stamps from a stationery shop in Boston after she complained that ordinary envelopes had no imagination. Mine remained in a locked drawer in my bedroom. Hers was supposed to have been placed with her personal effects before the funeral. At least, that was what I had been told. My hand moved toward the envelope, then stopped. "Why are you giving this to me?" Lily looked down at the roses. "Because today is my birthday." I felt something cold move through my body. "How old are you?" 6. 6 years old. Emily had disappeared 6 years earlier. She had been declared dead 3 years ago. The numbers rearranged themselves inside my mind, forming a truth I was not ready to touch. Lily stepped closer. She studied my face with painful attention, tracing details she seemed to recognize. but did not understand. Then her gaze settled on my eyes. Her lower lip trembled. "My mother had a picture of you," she said. "She kept it inside a book where Aunt Claire would not find it." I could not speak. "She said you were important." Lily's voice became quieter. "She said you were dangerous, too. But not to me." The envelope slipped slightly in her hands. I reached out before it fell, and our fingers touched. A small spark. Nothing more. Yet my entire body went still. Lily stared at our hands. Then she looked up at me, and the single word she whispered broke open every locked room inside me. "Father?" I had been called many things in my life. Boss. Sir. Mr. Cole. Monster, once, by a man who believed the word would frighten me. None had ever carried the weight of that one. I lowered myself onto one knee so that we were at eye level. "Who told you to call me that?" "No one." She frowned as if the answer should have been obvious. "You look like me." Before I could respond, a woman's voice called from across the cemetery. "Lily!" The girl flinched. An older woman hurried along the path, gripping her coat closed against the wind. Claire Bennett. I recognized her from Emily's funeral. She stopped when she saw me kneeling beside Lily. The color drained from her face. "You were told never to come near him," Claire said, reaching for the child. Lily stepped behind me instead. The movement was small. Instinctive. It changed something in the air. Claire saw it. So did I. "She brought me this," I said, holding up the envelope. Claire's eyes fixed on the seal. Fear replaced surprise. "Give it back. It has my name on it. Some things should stay buried, Mr. Cole." I looked at Emily's grave. "I have spent 3 years learning that buried things rarely stay quiet." Claire's jaw tightened. Lily's hand slipped into mine. Her fingers were cold. I opened the envelope. Inside was a single folded page written in blue ink. Emily's handwriting leaned slightly to the right, every letter unmistakable. At the top, she had written my name. Beneath it was a date from 3 years earlier. My vision blurred for one dangerous second. I forced myself to read the first line. "Adrian, if Lily is standing beside you, then I am gone. Our daughter has found you, and the man responsible for my death has found her too." For several seconds, the words refused to become real. The page trembled between my fingers, though the wind had stopped. Emily had written our daughter. Not your daughter. Not the child. Our daughter. Lily stood beside me with her small hand wrapped around 2 of my fingers, unaware that 6 missing years of my life had just collapsed into a single line of blue ink. I read the sentence again. Then a third time. "The man responsible for my death has found her too." Claire reached for the letter, but I folded it before she could take it. "Who was responsible for Emily's death?" I asked. My voice was quiet. That was when people usually became afraid. Claire did not. She looked at Lily instead. "Not here. You brought a child to a cemetery with a warning written by a dead woman. I think here is already worse than most places." Lily tightened her grip on my hand. I felt it immediately and lowered my voice. "Claire, tell me what is happening." She studied me with the same distrust Emily had worn the first night we met. Not fear. Judgment. I had always preferred fear. Judgment asked questions that power could not silence. "Emily left 6 sealed letters," Claire said. "Each letter contained instructions about when it could be opened. The final one was marked for Lily's 6th birthday. I was supposed to give you the first letter only if Lily found you on her own. That is an unusual condition. Emily knew her daughter." Lily looked up at me. "I am good at finding things." Despite everything, something inside my chest shifted. Not a smile. I had forgotten how to do that honestly. But it was close. Claire noticed, and her expression hardened. "Do not mistake one morning for a family, Mr. Cole. I would never mistake anything this important. You mistake power for importance all the time." Emily could have said those exact words. The resemblance between the 2 women was not physical, but it carried the same weight. I looked down at the page again. Beneath the warning was a second paragraph. If you want to protect Lily, do not take her to your house. Do not surround her with guards. Do not make her part of your world. Meet her where she lives. Learn who she is before you decide what she needs. For once, Adrian, do not command. Listen. I could almost hear Emily's voice shaping every word. Even from the grave, she knew the first thing I would try. A secure estate. Protection around the clock. Cameras at every entrance. Men posted beyond the property line. She had rejected all of it before I could speak. There is more, I said. Claire nodded. Read it later. Why? Because Lily has a birthday cake waiting at home, and she has already spent too much of her 6th birthday standing beside a grave. Lily released my hand and walked to Emily's stone. From her coat pocket, she removed a small yellow flower, slightly crushed around the edges. She placed it beside my 6 white roses. My mother liked these better, she said. Sunflowers. I know. Then why do you bring roses? The question struck harder than an accusation. Because I was not listening when she told me what she liked. Lily considered my answer, then nodded as if she had filed it somewhere important. Claire led her toward the gate. I followed. My security team moved the moment they saw us, but I raised one hand, and they stopped across the street. Emily's instruction was clear. No guards surrounding Lily. No black vehicles forming a wall around her life. I had spent years believing that protection meant controlling every door. Now I was being asked to protect a child by standing outside the door and waiting to be invited inside. Claire's home was a narrow brick house in Evanston, approximately 20 miles north of downtown Chicago. A paper banner reading Happy Birthday hung crookedly across the living room. 6 pink balloons floated near the ceiling. The dining table held a grocery store cake with yellow frosting and one corner already missing. I tasted it, Lily explained. For quality. Of course, I said. Claire gave me a warning look, but Lily smiled. It was Emily's smile. Smaller. Careful. Still devastating. I stood in the doorway wearing a charcoal overcoat that cost more than every piece of furniture in the room combined, and for the first time in years, I had no idea where to put my hands. Family photographs covered the walls. Lily at 3, holding a stuffed rabbit. Lily at 4, covered in finger paint. Lily at 5, missing her front tooth. 6 years of proof that life had continued without me. I moved closer to one photograph. Emily sat on a porch swing with Lily asleep against her chest. Emily looked thinner than I remembered, but peaceful. Alive. A date was written beneath the frame. The photograph had been taken approximately 2 months before her death. She never told me, I said. Claire stood behind me. She tried. For unanswered calls. For chances glowing on a table while I chose a meeting over her voice. Is Lily mine? I asked. Claire closed her eyes for 1 second. Yes. The word emptied the room of sound. Did Emily know for certain? She arranged a paternity test after Lily was born. The original results are with her private papers. I want another test. Claire's expression sharpened. Not because I doubt her. I looked toward the kitchen, where Lily was carefully placing 6 candles into the cake. Because I need something official. Something no one can erase or question. Claire agreed on one condition. The test would happen at an ordinary clinic, without my physicians, my drivers, or my name clearing the waiting room. 2 days later, I sat beneath fluorescent lights beside a vending machine that rejected my dollar bill 3 times. Lily watched with growing amusement. You are doing it wrong, she said. It is a machine. Machines can tell when people are bossy. She took the bill, smoothed it against her knee, and fed it into the slot. The machine accepted it immediately. See? I bought her animal crackers. She gave me the lions because she did not like eating animals that looked friendly. Collecting the samples took less than 10 minutes. The results arrived 3 days later. 99.99% probability of paternity. I read the report alone in my office, then locked the door and sat in silence until sunset. I was a father. I had been a father for 6 years. That evening, I drove to Claire's house without the convoy. I parked 1 block away because Lily said the neighbors stared when expensive cars stopped outside. I carried a small box wrapped in yellow paper. Inside was not jewelry, money, or anything useful enough to impress the men who worked for me. It was a wooden music box with a sunflower carved into the lid. Lily opened it at the kitchen table. A soft melody filled the room. Emily's favorite song. Lily looked at me with tears gathering in her gray eyes. My mother used to hum this. She hummed it when she was afraid. How do you know? Because she used to be afraid when she was with me. Claire turned away. Lily reached across the table and touched my wrist. Were you afraid too? Always. It was the first honest answer I had given anyone in years. Later that evening, an unfamiliar car circled the block twice. Claire agreed to let me remain in the house, and my security team installed temporary door sensors and a remote locking system without turning the property into a fortress. I slept in a chair outside Lily's room. The sound came after midnight. Glass breaking downstairs. A drawer opening. Footsteps moving quickly through the living room. I reached the stairs before the alarm finished sounding. The intruder ran toward the enclosed back porch. One of the temporary locks activated behind him, sealing the exterior door. Before the porch was secured, he pushed several envelopes through a damaged window screen to someone waiting in the alley. By the time my people reached the house, the second person was gone. The intruder remained trapped inside the porch, breathing hard, one hand gripping the wooden box Claire had kept beneath her desk. The box had held Emily's remaining letters. Now it was empty. He did not resist when the police arrived. He did not need to. His face carried the calm certainty of someone who had completed the important part of his task. Where are the letters? I asked before the officers took him away. He smiled without warmth. Gone. Who sent you? His eyes moved toward the ceiling, toward the room where Lily slept. Your daughter was never the target, Mr. Cole. He leaned closer, lowering his voice until only I could hear. She was the evidence. The word evidence stayed with me long after the man was taken away. Evidence meant proof. Proof meant Emily had discovered something before she died. If Lily was the evidence, then my daughter had spent 6 years carrying a truth dangerous enough to make someone break into a quiet house in Evanston on the night of her birthday. By sunrise, every lock had been replaced, every window checked, and every unfamiliar vehicle within 3 blocks identified. I wanted to move Lily and Claire to my estate. The order was already forming in my mouth when I remembered Emily's letter. Do not take her to your house. Do not make her part of your world. For once, Adrian, do not command. Listen. 2 days later, after Claire met with the principal and the school approved a temporary security plan, Lily returned to class. I sat at the kitchen table, while she ate cereal shaped like stars and asked what she wanted. She looked at me over the rim of her bowl. I want everything to feel normal. Claire began to object, but Lily shook her head. My mother said being scared does not mean bad people get to choose your life. Emily again. Speaking through a 6-year-old with milk on her upper lip. Then you will go to school, I said. But someone approved by Claire and the school will watch from a distance. Lily narrowed her gray eyes. How far? Far enough that your friends will not notice. No black cars. No black cars. And no men wearing sunglasses when it is cloudy. That is a very specific rule. They look suspicious. She was right. Claire approved a female security consultant who arrived in an ordinary blue minivan. A second licensed guard remained 2 blocks away and coordinated directly with the school office. Lily inspected the arrangement and gave us her approval. After she left, I returned to the cemetery. Not to speak to Emily. Not that morning. I went to find Walter. He kept the cemetery's burial authorizations in a metal cabinet behind his office, along with faded maps and receipts no one had examined in years. Emily's paperwork was thin. Too thin. The cemetery had received a burial permit and a sealed casket affidavit, but no record that anyone at St. Michael's had viewed or independently identified her remains. The affidavit referenced a funeral home and carried the signature of one witness. Marcus Vale. My oldest friend. My most trusted lieutenant. The man who had stood beside me at Emily's funeral while I stared at a closed casket and believed that the worst moment of my life had already happened. My attorney obtained a certified copy of the funeral home's identification file before noon. It contained no genetic confirmation and no dental comparison. Emily's identity had been accepted through her ring, her handbag, and Marcus's sworn statement. I called him from the cemetery office. Meet me at the garage on Fulton Street. He arrived 20 minutes later wearing a navy suit and the expression of someone who had learned never to ask why. Marcus was 42, broad-shouldered, with silver beginning at his temples. He had known me for more than 25 years. We had grown up stealing peaches from a market on Taylor Street and pretending hunger was an adventure. He had protected my name when I was too young to deserve loyalty. He had buried my secrets beside his own. You look terrible, he said. I found my daughter 3 days ago. For the first time since we were boys, Marcus had no immediate answer. His face did not change much. A slight tightening around the mouth. A pause before breathing. Most people would have missed it. I did not. Emily's daughter? He asked. Mine. He looked away. Only for a second. Did you know? No, did you know that Emily believed someone was responsible for her death? His eyes returned to mine. Where did you hear that? Not denial. A question. From Emily. I placed the burial and funeral records on the hood of a gray sedan. You identified her. There was no body I could identify visually. The garage became very quiet. Explain. Marcus removed his watch and set it beside the file, an old habit from years when difficult conversations could become physical. I did not move. Neither did he. Her vehicle was found near Lake Geneva, he said. The interior had been damaged by fire. The investigator recovered Emily's ring. Her identification was inside a bag near the vehicle. Your physician reviewed the report. My physician is dead. So is the investigator. And Daniel? Marcus went still. My half-brother had managed a private security network around several of our properties. The system archived feeds from toll plazas, parking facilities, and private road cameras. 6 months after Emily's supposed death, Daniel's sailboat disappeared during a storm on Lake Michigan. No body. No answers. Just another empty funeral. Daniel had access to the camera archive. Marcus said carefully. So did you. And you? 3 men. 3 access codes? Mine had not been used. The deleted footage carried Daniel's authorization, but authorization could be copied. Find the original archives, I said. Every private camera within 10 miles of where the vehicle was found. Businesses. Toll facilities. Gas stations. Anything that existed before someone cleaned our copies. Marcus nodded, but his attention shifted toward the garage entrance. There is something else. There is always something else. The intruder from Claire's house had a prepaid phone. One number was stored in it. Whose? Your father's care facility. Richard Cole had not ruled anything in 8 years. Age had reduced him from a man who terrified rooms into an old figure behind locked doors, but age had not erased his influence. My father had built the world I inherited. He taught me that mercy invited betrayal. That love created leverage. That a man survived by removing every weakness before an enemy discovered it. Emily had hated him. The feeling had been mutual. I left for Lake Forest before noon. Halfway there, Claire called. Lily found something. I turned the car around. When I reached the house, Lily sat cross-legged on the living room rug with the stuffed rabbit from the photographs in her lap. One seam along its back had been opened. Beside her lay a folded blue envelope. My mother told me there was a secret inside Mr. Button's she said. She said I should open it if anyone ever took the letter box. Claire stared at the envelope as if it had spoken. She never told me. She wanted Lily to decide. I said. My daughter held the letter out to me. This one has the bird. The red wax seal was cracked, but the handwriting remained clear. Adrian, if the first letters are gone, trust no official report about my accident. Someone used Daniel's security code to erase the private road camera archive, but Daniel told me that he had changed the code 2 days earlier. Only 3 people knew the new code. You, Marcus, and the man who taught you that mercy was weakness. I read the final sentence slowly. The room seemed colder with every word. Lily watched my face. Is it bad? It is honest. My mother said honest things can hurt. Your mother was usually right. I folded the letter and placed it inside my coat. Then I called Richard's facility. The director answered on the second ring. His voice was strained before I introduced myself. Mr. Cole, we have been trying to reach you. Where is my father? Silence. Paper moving. A distant alarm. He left some time before dawn. My father cannot walk 50 feet without assistance. A man arrived with a notarized medical authorization, copied identification, and documents naming Daniel Cole as an approved family representative. The staff member at the desk failed to complete the required telephone verification. Who signed him out? The director swallowed loudly enough for me to hear. The visitor signed Daniel Cole's name. My dead brother's name hung between us. I drove to Lake Forest with Marcus beside me and Emily's letter against my heart. Richard's room was empty. The bed had been made. His medication remained untouched on the nightstand. On the pillow sat a recent photograph of Lily standing outside her school in her red coat. Written across the bottom in my father's handwriting were 7 words. Mercy made you weak. The girl will finish it. I had spent my life believing threats came from enemies. The photograph on my father's pillow taught me something worse. Sometimes the most dangerous person in the room was the one who had known where you slept as a child. I studied the words beneath Lily's picture until the ink blurred. Marcus stood beside the empty bed, silent for too long. Your father could not have left without help, he said. Someone wanted us to know that. He was taken. Or he wanted us to believe that. I turned the photograph over. Faint indentations crossed the paper, as if someone had written on a note while it rested on top of the picture. 4 words remained legible. St. Agnes. Lower Chapel. St. Agnes had been abandoned for 12 years, a stone church near the old freight yards on the south side. My father had taken me there when I was 9. He told me that churches were useful because frightened men confessed inside them. Just over an hour later, Marcus and I stood outside the rusted gate. Rain had begun to fall, thin and cold. The church windows were dark except for one pale light beneath ground level. I told Marcus to wait outside. Adrian. That was not a request. He looked at me in a way I could not read, then stepped back. Inside, the air smelled of dust, wet stone, and candle wax. My footsteps echoed through the empty nave. The stairs to the lower chapel were narrow. At the bottom, I found Richard Cole sitting in a wooden chair beneath a single hanging bulb. A blanket covered his knees. His breathing was shallow, but his eyes were clear. Still sharp. Still measuring. You came faster than I expected, he said. Where is Daniel? A faint smile touched his mouth. Still chasing ghosts. Someone used his identity to remove you from the facility. Names are keys. You taught enough people how to copy yours. I placed Lily's photograph on the small table between us. Why is my daughter being watched? Because Emily left behind more than a child. What did she find? Richard looked toward the chapel door. You brought Marcus. He brought himself. That has always been his talent. I leaned closer. Did you order Emily's death? For the first time, my father looked old. Not weak. Old. There was a difference. Weakness asks for pity. Age asks only for time. 6 years ago, Emily learned that she was pregnant. He said. She believed your enemies would use the child against you. Marcus helped her leave Chicago and move in with Claire. I knew that she had gone. I did not know where. The room seemed to tighten around me. You allowed me to believe that she had abandoned me. She did abandon your world. That was not my question. Richard ignored the interruption. For 3 years, she raised Lily quietly. Then she discovered records linking my private accounts to men who had been watching Claire's house. She decided to contact you and expose everything. For unanswered calls. For chances. What happened that night? I asked. I told Marcus to frighten her and prevent her from returning to you. Nothing more. You used Marcus. He volunteered. Why? Because he loved her. The words landed without sound. Marcus had stood beside me for decades. He had watched Emily enter my life. Watched her challenge me. Watched me fail her. I remembered how he avoided her eyes at dinner. How he always knew when she needed a car. How he disappeared for hours after her funeral and returned smelling of rain. He loved her. Richard repeated. And he hated that she still intended to choose you. You expect me to believe that he acted alone? No. I expect you to understand that men rarely act alone. Pride stands beside them. Jealousy opens the door. Fear drives the car. My hands tightened against the edge of the table. Tell me exactly what happened. Richard closed his eyes. Marcus arranged for Emily's vehicle to fail on a quiet road outside the city. He intended to frighten her, then appear as the man who rescued her. The vehicle left the road before it reached the highway. Emily survived with injuries, but Marcus staged the scene to make it appear that she had died. He placed her ring and identification near the car, arranged a false medical report, and moved her to a private house in Wisconsin. Where was Lily? With Claire. Emily refused to bring the child into hiding until she understood who had betrayed her. I could hear the 4 unanswered calls ringing inside my memory. Emily believed Marcus had rescued her. Richard continued. During the following weeks, she found records connecting him to the damaged vehicle and the erased camera feeds. She tried to leave Wisconsin and return to Lily. How did she die? My father looked at the floor. The crash aggravated an undiagnosed heart condition. She also suffered internal injuries that required follow-up care. Marcus avoided any hospital connected to your name because he feared that you would find her. Emily refused the private physician he selected after she learned the truth about him. Claire eventually arranged treatment under another name, but by then the damage had progressed too far. Emily died 8 weeks after the staged accident. No dramatic ending. No final confrontation. Just fear, delay, and a body that had carried too much alone. Somehow that hurt more. You knew that she was alive. Not until after she died. You let me mourn an empty grave. Grief made you focused. My father said, as if explaining a business decision. You expanded. You stopped questioning the men who served you. The city became stable. Stable. I tasted the word. Emily died afraid because stability mattered more to you than truth. Truth does not keep an empire standing. Neither does rot. A sound came from the doorway behind me. Slow applause. Marcus stepped into the chapel. He was not smiling. That made it worse. Richard always knew how to make himself sound less guilty. He said. My father's face hardened. You should have stayed outside. I spent 30 years staying where other men placed me. Marcus removed his coat and folded it over the back of a pew. His movements were calm. Familiar. I am finished with that. I faced him. Did you damage Emily's car? I meant to stop her from returning to you. Answer me. Yes. The truth was almost gentle in his voice. I thought that if she saw how dangerous your world remained, she would understand that you could never give her peace. So you created the danger. I created a reason for her to choose differently. She did choose differently. She chose to hide from both of us. Pain crossed his face. Real pain. That was the cruelty of it. Marcus had not pretended to love her. He had loved her incorrectly. Possessively. Like a man holding a bird too tightly and blaming the wings for breaking. I kept Lily safe, he said. You kept her hidden. From you. From her father. You were not a father. You were a name Emily feared would swallow her child. My phone rang. Claire. I answered immediately. Her voice was unsteady. Lily is gone. Every sound in the chapel disappeared. Explain. Marcus was still listed at the school as an emergency contact under the name Mark Vale. Emily added him years ago. Someone called the office using my phone number and claimed there was a family emergency. The school released Lily to a driver carrying Marcus's signed authorization. They called me afterward when the office manager noticed that the signature on the form did not match the older file. I looked at Marcus. He did not look surprised. He reached into his pocket and placed Lily's yellow hair ribbon on the table. She is safe, he said. For now. My father tried to rise, but weakness pulled him back into the chair. Marcus looked at me with the grief of an old friend and the certainty of a stranger. You will destroy every record Emily left. You will resign, surrender your voting authority, and give me temporary control of the organization. Then you will come alone. Where? The place where Emily first asked you to choose her. He turned toward the stairs. Do not make the mistake you made 3 years ago. This time, answer when your daughter calls. After he left, my phone vibrated again. A message from Claire. Following a note Emily had left in Lily's birthday book, Claire had found one final envelope beneath a loose floorboard in Lily's closet. She sent me a photograph of the first line. Adrian, if Marcus takes our daughter, do not avenge me. Save the part of me that survived. I read Emily's final instruction until the words stopped looking like handwriting and became a command. Do not avenge me. Save the part of me that survived. For most of my life, revenge had been easier than grief. Revenge gave pain a direction. Grief only gave it a room and locked the door from the outside. Marcus knew that. He expected me to arrive angry, surrounded by men, carrying every threat my name could summon. Instead, I drove alone to the old lake house in Wilmette where Emily had once asked me to leave Chicago with her. The house had been empty for 6 years. Gray boards covered 2 windows. Wind pushed against the shutters. Lake Michigan stretched beyond the backyard, dark beneath the sky the color of steel. Emily had stood on that porch one summer evening and said, "Choose a life, Adrian. Not an empire." I had kissed her forehead and promised that we would talk after one final meeting. There was always one final meeting. One final problem. One final reason to make love wait. My phone rested on the passenger seat beside a folder containing my signed resignation, emergency voting proxies, account access authorizations, and instructions to the board. The documents could remove me from operational control at midnight. Final ownership changes would require legal review and board approval, but Marcus would have enough authority to control the organization immediately. My attorney had asked whether I understood what I was surrendering. I told him that I was finally beginning to understand what it had cost me to keep it. I stepped out of the car and left my coat inside. The wind struck immediately, cold enough to tighten my lungs. The front door stood open. Inside, a single lamp glowed in the living room. Lily sat on the couch with Mr. Buttons pressed against her chest. She looked frightened, but unharmed. A glass of water and an untouched sandwich sat on the table beside her. Marcus stood near the fireplace. "You came alone," he said. "Emily asked me to." His expression changed at her name. A small crack. Gone almost instantly. "She always knew how to move you after it was too late." "No. I was simply too proud to move when she was alive." Lily looked at me. "Are we going home?" "Yes." I made the answer simple because children deserve certainty, especially when adults have failed to provide it. Marcus looked toward the folder in my hand. "You should not promise what you cannot control. I am not here to control anything." I set the documents on the table between us. My resignation and voting proxies become effective at midnight. The board has received instructions. You will have the authority you demanded while the final transfers move through legal review. Marcus stared at the folder but did not touch it. You built all of this from nothing. I built it from fear. You built order. Emily called it a cage. Emily did not understand what men like us must become. Lily's arms tightened around the rabbit. I lowered my voice. Do not speak about her as if she belonged to either of us. Marcus looked at me then. Truly looked. She loved you. The words carried no accusation, only exhaustion. I know. She trusted you even after every disappointment. I know. And you ignored her. I know. Each answer took something from him. He had prepared for denial. For anger. For the old contest between two men who believed that winning could repair what love had lost. I gave him nothing to fight. Marcus crossed to the window. The lake moved behind his reflection. I was there when Lily was born, he said. Claire was afraid. Emily was exhausted, but she held that child and smiled as if the world had not betrayed her. She asked me to call you. My heartbeat slowed. Why did you not? Because she said your name with love? He closed his eyes. Even then. Even after everything. I knew that if you answered, she might forgive you. I wanted one part of her life that did not lead back to you. There it was. Not strategy. Not protection. A lonely man's selfishness dressed as sacrifice. You did not love her, I said. You loved being needed by her. Marcus turned sharply. And you loved owning her attention. Yes. The admission silenced him. I mistook her patience for permission. I mistook her forgiveness for proof that I could continue failing her. You and I were more alike than either of us wanted to admit. Lily slid from the couch. Her shoes touched the floor softly. She stayed several feet from Marcus, close enough to be heard but close enough to me that I could reach her immediately. My mother said dangerous men can choose to stop, she said. Marcus stared at her. She told you that? She wrote it in my birthday book. Lily moved one step closer to me but kept her eyes on him. She also said that people who are sorry tell the truth. Marcus looked down at the unsigned transfer acknowledgments. His hand trembled once. Your mother deserved better men. Then tell the truth now, Lily said. No anger. No threat. Just a child offering a door that neither of us had earned. Marcus sat in the chair beside the fireplace. The strength seemed to leave his shoulders. The original records Emily found are inside a storage unit Daniel rented near the marina, he said. Daniel discovered transfers from Richard's private accounts to men who had been watching Claire's house. He planned to expose Richard and tell you about Lily. I copied Daniel's security code, erased the camera archive, and used his identity after he disappeared. Is Daniel alive? Yes. The answer struck like sudden light. Richard threatened Daniel's wife and children. I helped Daniel leave the country, then used his name whenever I needed a dead man to open a door. Marcus reached into his pocket and placed a small storage drive on the table. This contains encrypted copies of the financial records, recorded calls, and Emily's scanned letters. It also contains the key to the storage unit where Daniel hid the originals. Together, they are enough to end Richard's influence without anyone being harmed. I picked up the drive. Lily moved beside me and slipped her hand into mine. Marcus watched the gesture with a sadness too old for words. Take her, he said. What about the documents? I asked. Destroy them. Why? He looked toward a photograph of Emily still hanging above the fireplace, left behind from the summer when she believed that house might become our home. Because she was right. Love that requires possession is only fear wearing a beautiful name. I did not destroy the documents. I took them with me so that no one else could use them. Marcus did not object. He opened the front door and stepped aside. No one followed us outside. At the car, Lily stopped and looked back at him. She did not offer forgiveness. She did not ask him to come with us. Will you tell the police the truth? She asked. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Yes. All of it? All of it. She nodded, then climbed into the back seat. I fastened her seat belt, checked it twice, and closed the door. Before I started the engine, she leaned forward between the seats. Did you save me? She asked. I looked at her gray eyes in the mirror. No, but I am here. You saved me first. She smiled, small and tired, then rested her head against the window. As we drove south beneath the first break in the clouds, my phone filled with messages from men demanding instructions. I turned it off. For the first time in my life, the city was calling, and I chose not to answer. 1 year later, I still woke before sunrise every Sunday, but I no longer reached for a black suit. Lily said black made me look like a man attending his own funeral, so I wore the blue sweater she chose for my birthday and drove north in a station wagon with a sunflower sticker crooked across the rear window. The sticker had been her idea. The station wagon had once belonged to Claire. I had objected to both. Lily had won both arguments. At 6:45, I parked outside Claire's house and found my daughter waiting on the front steps with 2 paper cups and a small white bakery box. Hot chocolate, she said, handing me 1 cup. You are not allowed to call it coffee. I would never disrespect hot chocolate that way. She gave me the serious look she used when deciding whether I was joking correctly. Then she smiled and climbed into the passenger seat. The first months had not been easy. Redemption never arrived like sunlight through an open window. It came through small, embarrassing lessons. I learned that children Lily's age did not care how many buildings carried your name. They cared whether you remembered library day. They cared whether you cut sandwiches diagonally or incorrectly. They cared whether you promised to attend a school play and actually appeared before the curtain opened. I missed the first parent conference because an attorney called about my father. Lily did not speak to me for 2 days. On the 3rd day, she handed me a yellow card with 1 sentence written in purple marker. Being sorry is not the same as being different. I kept that card inside my wallet. The evidence from Daniel's storage unit and Marcus's drive led to a federal investigation. My attorneys arranged my cooperation, and I accepted that every part of my business life would be examined. Accountants separated lawful companies from operations that could not continue. The legitimate holdings funded a restitution trust for families who had lost homes, jobs, or years of stability because of decisions made under the Cole name. Richard was moved to a secure medical facility while investigators reviewed his financial records and communications. For most of my life, I would have called that defeat. Now I understood that watching the empire he built become clinics, housing programs, and scholarships was an ending no private victory could improve. Daniel contacted me from Canada 3 months after Lily came home. He appeared on a computer screen with more gray in his beard and 2 children I had never met. I wanted to ask why he had stayed silent. Instead, I asked whether his family was safe. That was the first conversation we had as brothers instead of heirs. Marcus surrendered to the authorities 2 days after the lake house. He gave a full statement, returned every document he had hidden, and accepted the legal consequences without bargaining. 6 months later, after Claire spoke with Lily's counselor, Lily asked permission to write to him. Her first letter contained only 8 words. My mother believed people could choose better. Do you? Marcus answered on plain white paper. I am trying to learn how. Lily placed his response inside her birthday book. She did not forgive him. Children understand something that adults often refuse to learn. Hope and forgiveness are not the same gift. At St. Michael's, the maple tree above Emily's grave had turned gold. Lily carried the bakery box while I held 6 white roses in one hand and a single sunflower in the other. Walter no longer worked at the cemetery, but he had left me a note before retiring. It said that he was glad I had finally started arriving with someone who talked back. Lily read the note twice and declared Walter a wise man. We followed the narrow path through the stones. The morning air was 42 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough for our breath to show when we laughed. I used to hear only silence there. Now I heard Lily's shoes brushing through leaves, the paper box rustling beneath her arm, and the faint tune she hummed when she was thinking. Emily's song. Our song. Her song now. We stopped before the grave. After the investigation began, I had learned that Emily's actual remains had been buried under an assumed name in Wisconsin. With Claire's permission, we brought her home and placed her beneath the stone that had waited 3 years for the truth. The grave was no longer empty. For the first time, either was I. I removed the old flowers and cleaned the vase. Lily opened the bakery box and placed a small cinnamon roll beside the headstone. For my mother, she said. She cannot eat it. That means we will have to eat it for her later. Your logic is becoming dangerous. You taught me. I arranged the 6 roses carefully. Lily placed the sunflower in the center. Yellow among white. Life inside memory. Why 6? She asked, though I had told her before. Some questions are not requests for information. They are invitations to remember together. Your mother wanted a loud dinner table, I said. She imagined 6 people around it. Lily counted on her fingers. That is a lot of dishes. She expected me to wash them. Would you have? I looked at Emily's name. Eventually. Lily leaned against my arm. You would have needed practice. I need practice with most important things. We stood quietly for a moment. I had once believed that grief was proof of love. I thought that suffering faithfully meant I was honoring Emily. But grief without change was only another form of selfishness. It kept the person we lost frozen at the moment she left, and asked nothing of the living. Emily had asked more of me. She had asked me to listen, to stop confusing protection with control, to become the father Lily deserved, even if no one ever called me a good man. I placed one hand against the cold stone. I answered this time. I whispered. The wind moved through the maple branches. A few golden leaves floated down, turning slowly in the morning light. Lily slipped her hand into mine. Do you think my mother knows? I do not know. I think she does. Why? Because you do not look angry here anymore. I looked at my daughter. Her hair was tied with a yellow ribbon. Her gray eyes held the same stubborn kindness that had once made Emily stand in front of a man feared by half the city and tell him that he was wrong. I was never angry with her. No, Lily said. You were angry with yourself. Children do not soften the truth to protect your pride. That is one reason they can save people whom adults cannot reach. I nodded. You are right. I know. We shared the cinnamon roll on a bench 20 feet from the grave. Lily took the center because she said that birthday girls and daughters received the best part. It was not her birthday. She explained that being a daughter was a permanent qualification. At 8:30, we left for her school play. She was playing a sunflower in a production about the 4 seasons. She had 3 lines and had practiced them every night for 2 weeks. My phone rang as we reached the gate. An associate wanted an urgent decision about one of the remaining lawful companies. I looked at the screen, then at Lily waiting beside the station wagon. 1 year earlier, I would have answered before the second ring. I turned the phone off. Was it important? She asked. I opened her door. Not as important as a sunflower. She climbed inside and placed one hand over her heart. That is the correct answer. As we drove away, I saw the cemetery growing smaller inside the rearview mirror. For 3 years, I had visited Emily to count everything death had taken from me. That morning, I finally understood why Lily had found me there. She had not come to return me to the past. She had come to lead me out of it. I once ruled a city by making people afraid to say no. Then a little girl taught me that love begins when power steps aside and listens. The dead did not forgive me. They did something harder. They left me someone worth becoming gentle for.